Well, a multi-city hunt to nab Shankar Mishra, the man who urinated on an elderly co-passenger, is underway. India today has tracked down Shankar's father. But when questioned, he was defensive of his son's obnoxious actions on board that Air India flight. Joining us right now is Sugata Bhattacharjee. He is Shankar Mishra's co-passenger on that particular flight when this horrific incident happened. I'm thanking you so much for joining us and for your time. I really appreciated, Mr. Bhattacharjee. I want to begin by asking you, what really happened there? You were sitting with this man, Shankar Mishra. Was he downing drink after drink? What was going on at that point in time?
Sneha, thank you for having me. I'll be brief. The flight took off and we were having lunch, and he was having quite a bit of close to 4 drinks, and we were having a conversation. And by the end of the lunch, what happened was he was asking me the same question, like about my kids and family, which I had answered. So when I finished my lunch, I went to the galley and I told one of the male steward who was serving the drink that, you know, I think he has had enough. And then I went to sleep, and I suddenly woke up and I saw him falling on his seat. So I thought, you know, maybe he is a little tipsy, there's turbulence going on. So I go back to use the restroom, the lavatory, and I see this lady in the galley, and she had, you know, she was wet with I mean, I didn't know it was urine till she told me, and then the whole ordeal started.
So did you see this man urinating on the 70-year-old elderly woman passenger, sir?
No, but I was there when she was being cleaned.
Okay.
By the two air hostesses, young. They were like much junior, and 2 of them. Rebecca is one of them. I forgot the name of the other, and they wore gloves. They cleaned her up. Her whole body was reeking of urine. We helped her. She took off her clothes. It was put on a bag. In fact, Shankar took the bag, telling that he would dry clean it and send it back to her.
This is terrible. You know, I want to ask you, Mr. Bhattacharjee, you did say that you alerted one of the crew members that this man has had enough. So hold it. Don't give him any more alcohol to drink. Did they stop after that?
See, hindsight, everything is 20/20. Usually the profile or the clientele of India to US, so India, New York, traffic is not that hostile, or typically most of the passengers sleep. It's a long flight. So, you know, there's not much of rowdiness going on. I alerted it. I don't, but, you know, I don't know. He may have had another or couple after that. But he had enough that I could tell that he was drunk. I mean, he was just repeating the same thing, which he had asked me. And I did alert to one of the young guy that just cut him off. He had enough. That's it.
You know, sir, also, the woman passenger who was the victim in this, was she visibly distraught? What were the scenes like at that point in time, if you were to describe it to us?
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm not here to to do a media trial on Shankar. Let the land of the law take its own course. The problem I had was, and the complaint that I wrote was that it took almost 2 hours for the captain to take the call to give her a decent, clean seat. There were 4 first-class seats available. You have a passenger traveling in business class, and who has had this incidents. First you do is you make sure she goes and she's somewhere where she can sit. Instead, you know, they put on, you know, she had to use the same seat. They put multiple blankets, and then only finally after some time, 1 crew seat was available, and they gave the crew seat.
You know, did anybody, sir, question this? Did you or any of the other passengers who were there question this?
I did. Well, I don't care about other passengers. I don't know. I was there, and not only did I question it, I wrote a complaint. And fortunately, I had taken a photo of what I have written to them. I did I wrote a 2-page complaint saying that it was a poor judgment call by the captain. Because what happened was, you know, in this kind of long flight, they have two sets of crews. So the PIC, who is known as the pilot in command, had done his hours and he had gone to rest. So when I went to the senior stewardess and I said, please take her to first, what she said is, well, you know, the PIC is resting till the PIC wakes up. I cannot change her seat. And that is not correct because, you know, even she herself should have the authority as being the senior-most purser or the senior-most stewardess, or the pilot who was at that time commanding the aircraft should make that call. And that is my problem. That was the, you know, it is about taking accountability. Nobody took accountability.
Yes, Mr. Bhattacharjee, there's a whole lot of answering that the crew has to do, and I'm going to ask you some of these questions because what is making all of us extremely disappointed is the manner in which, you know, the passenger was then treated. Why bring the accused here, number one, face to face with the victim? A 70-year-old woman, you know, she's like the age of my mother. She would have been traumatized out of her mind. I mean, this is terrible. Bring a drunk man face to face with the victim here to apologize?
You know, even I see what this is my my take on it. What he did was a criminal offense. You know, indecent exposure is a crime.
Yes.
So, you know, they are in no authority to mediate it.
Yes.
Their job is to separate both the victim and the passenger and report it to the appropriate authority. Again, I am telling you, what might have happened is, again, accountability. They all had a long flight. They thought, you know, we complained, we'll all have to stay another 3 hours in the airport. Let's see if they can just talk and sort it out, and an end of story. But that, you know, that is not done.
There is a violation of the manual also, which has been given to crew members in terms of how to behave or what to do in situations like these. In this case, this man should have been handed over to the authorities, which the crew failed to do, or crew essentially failed to give this information to the authorities in question. They failed in their duties. But Mr. Bhattacharjee, do you agree? The crew members failed in their duties.
Well, they did not do what is the SOP, which is a standing the standing operating protocol. They should have followed the protocol. They didn't do it. But in every disaster, there are heroes, and there were two young stewardess who went out of their way, and you know, and they wore gloves. They cleaned her up. They cleaned her bag, because I was there for a long time, because I was literally disturbed, and I should have asked for the JLB, which is their general ledger book, but they said, you know, just write us and give us a report. And I wrote it. Fortunately, I took a photograph of what I submitted them, but I now realize nothing was being submitted to the airlines.
Yes, absolutely. This matter only came to light because of various reasons, not because Air India came out and acknowledged that there was a problem on this flight. I also want to ask you, did Shankar Mishra sober down beyond a point? What happened after the dust settled?
Yes. And you know, and when he woke up, by that time, you know, I woke up and I looked at him, and he said, "Bro, I think I'm in trouble." And I said, "You are." And then, you know, unfortunately, this is not a good story for anybody. You know, you have a 70-year-old lady who is traumatized. You have a 35-year-old gentleman who has lost his job. You have Air India, who is just in the process of a facelift, being maligned with this incidents. You know, where I in US get to read stories, Indian passengers pees on on the India's national airline. So as an Indian, it doesn't make me proud. It's nothing to celebrate. It's not a happy story. It's a sad story. But the thing is, there is no reason for what he did. You know, you cannot blame alcohol for it. A drunk man is a drunk man is a drunk man. That's what I said to another journalist too. So there is no reason for the behavior.
I want to ask you, you did say that the passenger was made to go back and sit on the same soil seat, blankets were put on it, and then she was made to sit on that. Some reports suggested that she was actually asked to sit on the seat of one of the crew members, of one of the air hostesses. Is that correct?
So there are two kinds of seat. So for a long time she was sitting in the galley seat, And then, of course, in this kind of 777, they don't have seats assigned for the 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 crew, those who rest. So what they do is they take up like 6 seats. So once one of the seats were available, they took her. But an easy option would be just taking her to one of the first vacant seat. She's an old lady. Just go, give her some comfort, take her to a fresh seat, because the whole place was smelling. They came, they cleaned up, they sprayed, and even they were not prepared, because when I spoke and everybody said in our life, there were a couple of senior air hostesses too. They said, never in my life we had to deal with such situation.
This was terrible. I mean, not just for the lady, but for all the passengers there. To be in a flight where a co-passenger just urinated on one of the seats, it's terrible, Mr. Bhattacharjee. It's back here in India. This is like making headlines, and rightfully so. Now, Air India, Mr. Bhattacharjee, kept quiet about this entire incident. In fact, an internal email that was sent talks about the fact that there is more to this than what meets the eye, referring to this conversation that has happened between the passenger who was affected and between Shankar Mishra about some sort of compensation in terms of money, down to the tune of 15,000 rupees. Now, what do you make of this conversation? As far as the compensation amount is concerned, this money has finally been returned to Shankar Mishra. The daughter of the woman stepped in and said, take this money back. We are not happy with this. What should have been the way forward? Many are questioning, why take a compensation of 15,000 rupees?
So the daughter of the victim did call me the next day.
Okay.
And she was unhappy, and she did tell me, unfortunately, even though I know I cannot give you any details for privacy reason of who she is and what I won't. But she did contact me, and she was literally upset, and she did mention that I'm going to write to the chairman of the Tata board. But again, I love Air India. It's, we should be all proud. It has gone through a lot. It is an incident where standard protocol was not used, and I wish they were more diligent in handling the situation.
Okay. What did she call you for? In the sense that when she called you up the very next day, like you said? Yes.
Yeah, she said, thank you very much, because I told, I gave my coordinates to her, and she did ask about what happened exactly. She wanted to know, because her mother was traumatized.
But for so many days for this incident to surface before the press, should there have much more done by Air India to begin with? This is a criminal act at the end of the day, and this man is still absconding.
Asneha, I am in no way, I cannot answer for Air India. Air India will answer, they are competent enough to answer for themselves. But I thought I did my part. I wrote a written complaint, and I just left it that. And that is what I think I did as a responsible co-passenger and a fellow passenger. Now, even I am surprised. I thought it will never even come out, and I came and I told it to my family. I told it to my friends, and some of them laughed. Some of them was horrified. But eventually truth comes out.
Eventually truth comes out. I want to ask you lastly, Mr. Bhattacharjee, Air India crew members, some of them went out of their way. Many of them failed to do their duty. Do you think that in this case no stone should have been left unturned to make the victim here comfortable? That is something that they failed to do completely.
In a situation like this, the buck stops with the top guy. Because, and whoever is the captain should have done everything possible, because a lot of times there are so much, there are so much hierarchy and there is so much bureaucracy involved in Air India that even if at times crews want to do something good, they're afraid of consequences. But as a commander, as a pilot, he could have done anything you want, because if she would have been dealt with care and love and compassion, and what you said, Sneha, is very true. She could be my mom, she could be the captain's mom, she could be your mom. And, you just treat somebody like as if she is your mother. And that was not done. So there is no point, blaming everybody. Yes, it is a cumulative mistake, but somebody has to take take the shot, and in that case, whoever is in the top, the head of the crew and the head pilot should have taken the call to do everything possible, and they cannot subside a crime, and they cannot do it.
Well, absolutely. You also mentioned that you did complain to them, but nothing was done. These are questions that Air India must answer. The crew members, the pilots in question must answer. Why did they not do the needful, not follow the manual, not follow the standard operating procedure? I'm going to thank you, Mr. Bhattacharjee, for joining us with your views and about telling us about what really happened on that flight in which Shankar Mishra urinated on his 70-year-old passenger.